This will be a session that is going to discuss the rapid mobilization of the Polish society after the 24th of February, after the Russian aggression, showing an example of democratic resilience. And of course, we couldn't have a better place to discuss this than Warsaw. And we do have a truly great moderator to introduce our guests and to lead the session. So I would like to invite now Ms. Greta von Susteren, who's the host of The Record at Newsmax. And Greta, if you are with us, please can you join us at the stage to invite our guests and lead the next session.
Thank you, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here. Just as a short note, this is my third trip to the region. I was in Ukraine in March, and I'm enormously grateful to all of Poland. Everybody's helped these refugees, which is the subject of our panel today, is the refugees. And Ambassador, we're very proud of this ambassador. I'm an American, and this is an incredible ambassador. We're extremely proud of you, sir. And Kasia, with Warner Discovery, TVN24, I've been studying their journalism forever, and hashtag jealous of their good work. Anyway, thank you very much. All right, so we're going to begin with all that. Ambassador, let me start with you. Since February 24th, what has struck you about the refugee influx here into Poland?
Greta, thank you for coming to Poland, first and foremost. Let me share with you a Polish formulation on a banner over the railroad in Przemyśl, Poland. 3 words. Tutaj jesteście bezpieczni. Here you are safe. What an awesome message for the people of Poland to send to that Ukrainian mom with 2 kids arriving in Przemyśl at 11 p.m. at night, scared out of her wits and not knowing where she will go next. And that is a metaphor. That is a metaphor for the rapid mobilization the Polish people have done since February 24th. It reminds me as an American of the American reaction after the attack on Pearl Harbor. It reminds me of the American reaction to the Race to the Moon challenge that unleashed rapid technological revolutionary change in America. And it's happened in Poland before. It happened during the Warsaw Uprising during World War II. It happened during the Solidarity era. And now it happened in 2022 with millions of young Poles, especially young people, organizing on social media to go to one of the 8 border crossings on the Polish-Ukrainian border to pick up a refugee family. And my prediction is this, that in 20 or 30 years from now, there will be that young woman who today is organizing a clothing drive for Ukrainian refugees in Bydgoszcz or in Torun or in Wrocław, who 30 years from now will be the president-elect of Poland. And she will have been informed by this year, by this moment, will be a better leader of a country that will be better situated to take on a global role thanks to this year.
Kasia, you wake up on February 23rd, 24th, of course, when it starts, and the war is about to start. You've got this huge news organization. It's got a worldwide reputation for being fair and doing, great journalism. So tell me, what did your news organization do to put the spotlight on this crisis?
Yeah, well, we have a very robust news organization. We touch lives of people in Poland, but we also now obviously are sister organization to CNN. And as the war broke, I think that on the moment in Poland, that was 4 a.m. in the morning, we started the coverage. So the first decision that we had, the first really editorial decision that we took was, we're going to Ukraine. We're sending our journalists, we're sending our people to Ukraine. We have to cover, we have to show what's going on and inform the public about the atrocities and about the war. That was our first editorial decision. Our first business decision, which has been very difficult, is we're pulling out of Russia. We had our channels in Russia, and we pulled out within 1 week. We pulled our business out of Russia within 1 week. And since then, I must say that on a TVN24, CNN Worldwide, we've been covering the war. We are true to one message. We don't want the world to forget about the heroism and about the pain and what the Ukrainian people are going through. On TVN24, from this 4 a.m. in the morning, on the day where the war broke, for the next 2 weeks, we had a special program, a special edition, where we were covering the war 24/7 without a single commercial break. We were just on the ground in Ukraine, showing what's going on, and we're still continuing.
Ambassador, you talked about how kind that sign is, and and like I said, I was in Ukraine in March, and I saw the people boarding the train, women and children mostly. There's 17.2% inflation rate in this country. I imagine this is a burden. Most of the refugees are here. This is a burden on the Polish government in that respect. How do you convince them to keep trying? How do you convince our government back home to keep helping too?
Well, Greta, capacity is a question that we all have. There was a Pew Public Opinion survey released just about a month and a half ago that showed incredibly that Polish public approval of taking in even more refugees was increasing rather than decreasing, which is an incredible, I think, statistic, and Pew is a very authoritative platform. And it's important to recognize this is a unique in history reception to a mass refugee movement. I served as ambassador in Sweden for 4 years, and Sweden is rightfully proud for having taken in 1 million refugees over 20 years. The Poles have received into this country over 6 million refugees in 7 months, and they are diffusely being taken care of, meaning family by family, apartment by apartment, rather than a national organizing place or structure for them to be in various focal points. It's completely different than any other refugee movement in history, and in the future, no refugee movement will occur without invoking the case of Poland regarding how those refugees are received. It's to me, a challenge, given the inflation rate that you mentioned. Close to 18% inflation is impacting every family. Everyone sees the energy prices. And at the same time, Greta, in my perspective, for the Polish people, this is 1939. This is another invasion, cruel invasion of Central Europe by an oppressor. And the young generation is connecting their ability to organize through iPhones, through these things. This is the way they are doing it. They are organizing on these things while invoking the memory of World War II and the Holocaust, when less was done for people being oppressed. So it's a remarkable story that connects the past and the future right here in Central Europe, and it's working.
You raised the iPhone, is that we had an air raid sirens for what cities we were in. They would show up on our iPhones, so we'd know, if we couldn't hear the siren. Kasia, you've got journalists inside Ukraine. How do you balance covering other stories and keeping the story of refugees alive so they don't get sort of, here in the United States, or not here, but in the United States, we can get war fatigue. We've talked about the war so much, but this is such an important story. How do you keep it so that people are interested in it every single day? Something like refugees, which could perhaps the sadness can get overwhelming, and the same story almost sort of repeats itself.
So to the point that the ambassador just made, that it's historically unique in the way how Polish people mobilized, how they opened their homes, because those refugees really entered all the individual homes of people, yes? How they opened their homes, how they opened their families, how they opened, how they felt responsible and opened their hearts. I think this is unique. It's unique for the world, it's unique for us, a very unique moment. And there's a very important role that we as a media, we feel we have to play here. And it's also about showing that and bringing and supporting that mobilization and helping with this, with a, maybe also a structured way. So one thing that I wanted to mention is like over the weekend, just after the war broke, during the weekend, we pulled together, we set up a special website that would inform people. We got a lot of calls. We got a lot of calls from people. How can we help? How can we help? There were a lot of people going to the borders. There were a lot of people doing a lot of stuff. And we thought like, okay, this needs organization. We need to show, we have to put information because there's so much misinformation. We need to put reliable information out as we put on the news, but also to the people, how can we help? Within 24 hours, we pulled this website. It's still working, it's still operating. We put new information where we put, organization. It's open to any organization that is providing help, credible organizations that provide help. We check how we can help from legal perspective, from aid, humanitarian perspective, any type, finding jobs, finding schools for children, and so on. So there is this place on Good Morning TVN where you can find all of that. And we believe that we also have a role to play to make sure that the world sees that. And that's why our shows, the shows that were produced by our journalists from Supervisor down in Ukraine, are being broadcast on our networks around the world and on our digital platforms around the world, reminding people of what's going on, how people are mobilizing, what it takes to really make sure that it stays top of your mind.
If I could just add to what Kasia said, because I think it's so important, the role of the private sector in responding to this crisis. And I'm just so proud as the US ambassador in Poland that so many American companies have played such an incredibly constructive role in this. Kasia and TVN have been incredibly responsive in organizing and helping, in terms of the conditions of refugees. I will add to that Google $38 million announcement when their CEO was here for refugees. Hilton Hotels, Amazon, Uber, thousands upon thousands of rides. And from a historical perspective, Greta, this is really the first time where you had an incredibly well-organized and feared military conduct an invasion in which there was a really massively diffuse response against it from people, the Ukrainian people, the Polish people, businesses jumping in, and it has managed to stop this invasion in its tracks. It's a unique and kind of precedent-setting event.
The thing that I worry about the ambassador is that everybody wants to help in the beginning, but the burden has fallen primarily for geographical reasons on this country, on Poland. And it really, talk about the private sector and they're helping it, and good for them. But the momentum has got to go on, or this honeymoon of help will end. No country can endure an influx like this. And so how do you how do you keep it going so that the people realize beyond these borders what a burden it is on this country and what a big heart this country has, so that people continue to help?
Greta, I can't give you a perfect answer to that, but let me just put it this way. I'm bullish on the Polish people and their ability to improvise, their ability to endure, and their ability to support. Is the economy perfect? No. Might we see more refugees? Possibly. But I'm absolutely convinced that there is a national ethos to do what's right for the Ukrainian people and to see things through, even if it gets harder. I hope I don't have to prove that thesis, but I'm convinced that's the case. And I'm also convinced, perhaps ironically, that today and this year will behoove the people of Poland for years to come, because they have generated an identity that is amazing in 2022 as a humanitarian superpower and doing the unexpected. The Poles could have easily closed their doors and said, we feel your pain, but we can't take you. And they did exactly the opposite. And I think we would see more of that if things get worse. I hope that doesn't happen.
Kasia, you've covered, TVN24 has covered so many important stories over history, and like I said, I've watched it. I know the great work it does. What's been the biggest challenge? Because every news story, and this one's so catastrophic. What's been the biggest challenge to cover the story?
Well, one of the things that we take very, very seriously is actually in a moment of such crisis and in a moment of fear, let's be honest, because there's obviously fear in Poland as well. There's so much misinformation that's going around, and a lot of, and we cannot obviously control what's happening in internet or what kind of misinformation is happening, but this is probably one of our biggest focuses and a very difficult thing to strive for, to make sure that we are a reliable source of fact-checked information. And we can see that, from a simple measure like viewing results, that people do turn to us to check and to have reliable information. And I think this is hugely, hugely important in a situations like that. We do it obviously on air, but we also have special services that are kind of fake news checking services like Concrete 24, where we actually disclose what is being manipulated and how to approach those information. I think that this is probably one of the biggest challenges we have to make sure that people can rely on it fully.
Could I add to that? Because fear, I think, is something that the US really wants to align with the Poles to address. What's happening in the East is scary, and we don't know what Poland will do next. But we are absolutely in the game in terms of Poland's security. We have now more than 10,000 US troops in Poland, all on Polish bases. We are helping the Poles arm with the most sophisticated military technology that one can find anywhere in the world. And we are ready now for any contingency, but also more broadly are absolutely committed to Poland when it comes to indivisible security, not just military security, but energy security, the security of democracy and so forth. We are on the cusp of a very important civil nuclear power deal here in Poland, which, if it's consummated, the US Department of Energy will place its regional center of excellence for civil nuclear power and clean energy in Poland. That will connect Polish nuclear development to the national labs that the US has all across the United States and to our best universities when it comes to the study of nuclear technology. That's the kind of meshing together that we want to do across the transom when it comes to security.
Kasia, if for some reason, as an outsider to Poland and looking at history, it almost seems like it's built into the DNA of the Poles and the history in this country to Polish people to really want to help too. Historically, it's almost like this generation is ready to do this.
You're talking about bringing help, yeah? Bringing help. Yeah, I think that, well, obviously this is the best testament to what you are saying, yes? And I think that it has been a remarkable movement. And remarkable movement from every single person, but also from the organizations. And as I mentioned, you could probably talk about a lot of things. I think that one thing that's really important and what we really wanted to also do from the beginning is there was so much goodwill, so much heart. But I believe strongly that when you organize that and when you have those moments of media or the other organizations to organize that help, we can do so much more even. And that was something that we were putting a lot of emphasis to really support the organizations or support those that really know how to handle refugee crisis, that know how to work in war zones. Our cooperation with Polish Humanitarian Action was one of those, because we know that they know how to handle that, yes? And our goodwill alone is not gonna, you know, coupled with their know-how, can bring a real change.
Ambassador, I'm going to give you the last word on this, but it's interesting to watch, you know, all the different nations participating and helping. It's like, you know, the world is deeply divided, but it does show the good people trying to fight together to do this. I mean, helping.
Absolutely. There's every couple of days a meeting in Rzeszów called the Community of Interest meeting, which brings together the towns and the villages and the regional government, but also the national government and international governments, all working together to generate a collective response to this. At the table is, of course, the United States, but also the UK, Australia, Switzerland, Sweden, France, and so forth. It has brought the world together around the local roots of this crisis, but giving global reach in terms of the way it is seen and the response to it.
And I might just, as my own business journalism, is that I tip my hat to all the journalists who've been covering this and
Absolutely.
bringing the word out so that people can make reasoned, smart, compassionate decisions. So I tip my hat to TVN24 and all the other journalists over there. And with that, I'm going to conclude. Can you give applause, please, to Kasia and the ambassador?